This is the Griffin Realty Group Ask-A-Griffin podcast, episode number 69. The agent plan continues with the question, why should you bring all of your leads to a conclusion? Are you a home seller or a home buyer who has questions about selling or buying residential property? Or maybe you're an agent who needs direction, but you just can't seem to find a way to get your answers. Well, then, hey, you are definitely in the right place. I'm Danny Griffin, the founder of the Griffin Realty Group and the host of this podcast. And to help you get started in the right direction if you need to sell or buy property right now or in the very near future, or perhaps you want to become a real estate agent or just get better at being one, you can take advantage of our free step-by-step guides that are waiting for you at griffincourses.com. That's Griffin courses.com. Okay, let's get started. In this episode, we are continuing in the agent plan. So of our three plans or courses, we have a seller plan, an agent plan, and a buyer plan. We're in the agent plan, helping you become a better agent. So the first point here, when we talk about bringing all your leads, that's something that you'll be familiar with, to a conclusion. Why? Why would you even think like that? Meaning, if I have a contact where I have their name, their information, their telephone number, their email address, all of the information I would need to have a fully formed contact in my database, I want to bring that to some sort of a conclusion is the premise here. And the first reason why, or how really, is that I must define long-term follow-up in my business to ensure ROI or return on investment. Think about what I'm saying. If I go and purchase, I call them raw materials, so you can think of it like a manufacturing plant. I know that sounds a little bit weird when you're talking about service business, but to productize service makes it a lot easier to see it as a manageable system or manageable business. So I think about contacts as the raw materials in any your service business, let alone the residential real estate business. So for example, if you want to manufacture a sale, then you need contact information of people that are going to become part of that sale. So what we do is when we go out looking for leads, we get far too many of them. Most top producers get entirely far too many of them and end up buying pounds and pounds and pounds of internet inquiries that aren't even real leads. Some of it might even be questionable contact information. Does that person really even exist? So you see, we have this dilemma at the front end of our service manufacturing business. So what happens is, we have to go there and say, well, if I'm going to turn a profit, then I better be careful about how much money, time, effort I spend finding those contacts that are leads, meaning I know nothing about them. Okay, I'll get into that in the second point here. But I need to be careful on how much money I spend, because if I get too few of them, there's nothing to manufacture. If I get too much of them, then there's way too much and I can't keep up with it. And how in the world, if there is too much information, am I going to bring anybody consistently to a conclusion so this becomes an ongoing business that can be consistent, predictable, etc., right? So that's how you think about return on investment. I spend a certain amount in acquisition of new business and conversion of that new business, and that needs to be obviously less than the price I get paid for that service at the end, also known as your profit. Pretty simple concept, and I'm dumbing it up for all of you that get it because I want to make a bigger plan here, a bigger point. Most of you top producers don't slow down to think about what I'm saying here, that you should set a standard of bringing all of your leads to a conclusion. For you top producers listening, I'll tell you what your problem is because I've experienced myself as a top producer. We just get too much raw material. We absolutely don't have the conversion systems from the database and the telemarketers and the inside sales staff and the buyer agents and the seller agents. We don't have enough going on there to handle what we just bought. So we get relegated to what I term cream skimmers, meaning we end up looking in the lead pile only to skim the cream, meaning those people that are probably closest to selling but especially buying. It's just not a great return on investment. And a lot of you explained it away by saying, oh, it's no big deal. It just takes me 1,000 leads to get 10 sales. Why? Why does it take that? Because you've never set a standard for bringing all those 1,000 to a conclusion. Okay, so let me just back the bus up a little bit on definition inside a conversion module in my world. The second point here is beyond defining long-term follow-up to ensure ROI. By the way, long-term follow-up can go on a very long time. What I did was I shortened it. I originally built systems thinking 36 months because I was getting a lot of that whimsical internet inquiry, and a lot of those people are very early in their process on the buy side. So I built a system for long-term follow-up that was 36 months long. Since then, what I've said is, well, if I brought that into 12 months, could I identify people inside of 12 months that were going to buy or sell a property inside my geographic area and at or above my minimum price that I'd like to stay at to stay profitable? All those things really matter. And all of a sudden they hit me. So I brought it into 12 months. So my definition to really look at systems to see if I could get them under control was inside of 12 months. Doesn't mean that I don't still have those systems that could take me longer. Doesn't mean I still don't do business with people that are longer than 12 months. But I really needed to work on my business inside of 12 months. Who could turn over into a sale? Who could I serve? I'll use the proper language I use, but I'm trying to be very manufacturing brained here for you so you see this. So inside of 12 months is the definition that I'm using to get a return on investment. Those contacts come in. But I have to, when they come in, they're contacts. They're not leads, they're not prospects, they're not clients. They're contacts. That's all they are. It's contact information. That's what you have in the service business. You hopefully have a full name, you have a mailing address, you have an email address, you have a good telephone number. That's a fully formed contact. So when you get the best raw material that you can get for your database, it has all of that. Now, of course, if we're going to the internet and we're not buying a list with all of that on it, we might get much less. We might just get a name and an email address. I understand that. But the goal to really help your conversion process and get a better return on investment should be the endeavor to get all the contact information. And when you first get it, it's really just a lead. That contact is a disposition of lead, meaning you don't know anything about why they're buying or selling. That's a big, important first block inside your database. I have this contact information and I don't know anything about them, so I label them lead until I know why they're going to do something and that they have a motivation level on a scale of 1 through 10, somewhere around 9 to 10 inside those 12 months I just defined. I'll repeat that. I'll say it very slowly. To me, at this moment in time, the recording this podcast, the best practices that I can follow would be that I am going to pay close attention to contact information, try to get it fully formed if I can, and I'm going to qualify that person's why they're doing something and their motivation to do so on a scale of 1 to 10, hoping that I'm going to hear it's a 9 or 10 somewhere inside the next 12 months. That's an avatar for me, or an ideal potential contact. I'm not even going to call it anything else other than a contact. That's a good one, because when I find out that answer to that lead, if there is a real reason why they want to buy or sell, if that motivation is going to be somewhere at a 9 to 10 in the next 12 months, I can change the disposition if I'm conversing with them and they're accepting of my service. I can move them to a prospect contact. Lead contact, prospect contact. And what happens in that lead section is, guess what? There are a lot of those contact leads that don't have a real reason why they want to buy or sell. So they are not going to move in my database to prospect. Right? Follow that very closely, and I'll get back to this in a second. I want to keep defining. Now, when I have a prospect, I can work from that list. My staff, my team, my independent contractors, they can help me further define those prospects and see if we can get it to a prospect face-to-face meeting. See, a lot of the time what will happen is there's initial conversation that we can determine that and they're willing to talk to us. That's good enough for me to move them into disposition of contact, of prospect, so that I can continue to serve them so that I can win a meeting. If I win that meeting to go see their house, to give them advice on how to sell, if I win that meeting to show them some properties, then they've just elevated inside the prospect stage. That's all. Now, once I begin to formalize that buyer relationship, I will change that to a client disposition. Still a contact, still the same contact information. And maybe as time has gone on, I've gotten a better mailing address. I've gotten a private phone number, whatever. It's improved the quality of the contact information. But now, and only now, do they become a client. So you see, inside this manufacturing plant, along the assembly line goes the contact information, and the disposition is changing, and they're moving along towards a closing. And then the ultimate is a happy past client. So I have this contact that goes from disposition lead. I don't know why they're doing it, and that their motivation is a 9 to 10 inside the 12 months. If I can figure that out, and they'll converse with me about it, they become a prospect. If I can elevate them to prospect appointment and convert them to a client, they could become a contact client. I work with them, put them under agreement, they become a contact closing. They get through that process okay with no problems. They hit the ultimate, the holy grail, a happy Griffin, meaning they are a contact that's a past client. And now I have this asset, this community I can continue to nurture that will hopefully accelerate the growth of that assembly line by repeating and referring. Simple. So those are your stages. That's the life of a contact. Here's the key point. Don't be afraid. This is point number 3, by the way. Don't be afraid to delete contacts at any and all of these stages. Don't be afraid. So many of you are covetous of all these contacts, and that's especially top producers. It's crazy. They're like squirrels. They can't wait to fill the tree up. So full that when the winter comes, they can't even get back in the tree and eat the nuts, right? So what's happening is they're just covetous of too much contact information. The database is so bloated that it's completely inefficient. We've killed the return on investment. Even if we're profitable, even if things are going well, it's just a horribly run business. So you must make a business decision. How long will you follow up? And when will you bring those people to a conclusion? It's a must. A conclusion means one of two things. At every stage, lead, prospect, client, closing, past client, they made it through or they didn't. They got kicked out. In my world, it's called delete contact. They get marked for deletion. Why? Wasn't a real why, no motivation. Had a real why, had a real motivation working with an agent. Those are examples of get them out of there. But what if they don't like the agent? I don't need to steal business. There is plenty of it if I do it correctly. Plenty of it. And then I don't need to beg a prospect to become an appointment. If they're just never going to do it and they're really stuck and their timing isn't really what I thought, I need to move on. I need to make business decisions to bring them to a conclusion. And the problem is, if I'm sloppy up front with accumulating all this contact information, I'm more likely to hoard. I'm more likely to hang on to that. I'm more likely in turn to bloat my database and lose ROI. So by cleansing, think of it like spring cleaning. And nature hates a vacuum. That's the coolest scientific concept I ever learned. I'm no scientist, but vacuum in science is an empty space. And if you leave it empty, nature will fill it with something. So if you cleanse it and you pull out people that you're not really going to convert, and you're hanging on and you're not being honest, if you pull them out, nature will fill it with an even better one because your standards for who belongs in there continues to climb. Don't play desperate because then you're hanging on to, I say, don't try to bring Lazarus back from the dead all the time, right? A contact that's not going to move along smoothly in this process inside of 12 months is somebody that should be really kicked out of the database. I can make the case that maybe if you're really already good at your short-term follow-up and it's tight, you could extend past 12 months for your follow-up. But most of you, I'm talking 99.9% of you, are not even close to there yet. I know it because I have spent the better part of my life trying to get myself there. It's really hard to be that impeccable. But build it for 12 months. I know you want to make money in your business over the next 12 months so you have a good year, right? Okay, here's your best practices. So let me go back. I'm going to reiterate, in the agent plan, that's where we find ourselves this week, why should you bring all of your leads to a conclusion? And the points were, well, first of all, before you bring them to a conclusion, define what long-term follow-up is to ensure ROI over a reasonable period of time. Because if you're going to kick people out or move them all the way to the end, have some definition. 12 months, inside of 12 months. Okay. That's long-term follow-up for all of us. Next, understand the clear stages of the life of a contact, meaning a contact is always the word we use as it goes through the CRM, right? Contact relationship manager is the best definition I've ever heard because it talks about that contact and how these relationships are changing. The contact has a relationship of lead. We know nothing about why or their motivation to do so inside of 12 months. Prospect, we do. There's a real why to do it, and somewhere along the line in the next 12 months, they're going to be a 9 to 10 on a scale of 1 to 10. Client, they're definitely listed with us already, or they're definitely seeing properties. Now, whether or not you have a buyer-client contract, I'll leave that up to you. Then they go under agreement, they become a closing, and then the holy grail is when they become a past client. Those are your stages in the life of a contact. And lastly, the most important part of this, you must bring the people to a conclusion that are delete contacts. That's really what this podcast is about. The obvious is you move more to happy past clients. The not so obvious is the bold business decision to delete contacts from your database that aren't going anywhere. All right, let me summarize it with this statement here. The concept of bringing all your leads to a conclusion is simply the intelligent business owner's approach to ensuring that all contacts purchased or collected must become part of a final sale or eliminated from the database. Not doing so will pollute the business. All right, now remember, you can take immediate action to get started in the right direction if you're new to the business or improve your business. You can get there too. If you need to sell or buy property or an agent, any of this stuff, I have guides for you. And they're simple to understand, and they will give you strategy, and they're waiting for you. GriffinCourses.com. That's GRIFFIN courses.com. A seller plan, a buyer plan, an agent plan. It's what to do without me. You don't need me. You can have that stuff. Also, don't forget, of course, you can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And you can find us also on social media. We try to post all our content there, and that way you won't miss out on any of these insights, or you prefer that platform. We'd also appreciate it if you would comment and share on our content with anyone looking to buy or sell or become an agent, and just get them this information, please, so that they can be successful. But remember this, we sign off the same way every time, all of the podcasts. Nobody's coming for you. Absolutely nobody. So take action and get to work on a plan for selling, buying, or becoming an agent. And we will see you in the next episode to hopefully help you do just that. Thanks again.